Hey guys, welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host as always, Harry Wilmington. So nice to see you today. We have a jam-packed show full of awesome advice for you guys, all designed to help you learn how to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. And today, we're going to be covering a topic that is very, very important and one that's very near and dear to a lot of guys and women also, because the question of the day is, can modern women be feminine? And how can you motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self when in a relationship? And I know this is a thing that a lot of women struggle with and a lot of problem situations that guys have a problem finding, because in today's world, women have been asked to do a lot. They're about a lot more independent now. They're going for more jobs and have more schooling and all these other various things, which is great. But the downside of that is that a lot of them have, as a result of having to be independent and be on their own, have taken on qualities that are of a more masculine nature, which you as a guy might have a problem with because you're thinking you want a feminine woman, but how do you do that? Are they out there? And then what do you need to be doing as a guy to see to it that a woman is able to bring out her femininity and want to actually be that way in the relationship? So we're going to cover all that today. First, we're going to cover why it is that women are acting more masculine today, at least a good portion of them. We're going to go into 5 ways that you can motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self when in a relationship, so that way you get that loving, kind, caring person that you want that's able to also be their true, authentic self as based on nature. And then we're going to answer a question of the day from a guy that actually has a question about, he's a guy that's has been raised up to be more in his feminine energy, but he also wants a feminine woman. And he's wondering how he can get that and what he needs to do to see to it that he's able to attract those kind of women. And then I'm going to randomly at the end of the show, I'm going to talk real quick about a video game that you can play with a woman that you're in a relationship with that's going to actually help you with your communication. And you might actually be able to learn how to communicate better in the sense of being able to listen to her, be more patient, be more attentive, and all this from a video game. And I only know this because I have played this particular game when in relationships, and it's always helped with communication, okay? So we're gonna get into all that. First, real quick, there was a person this week that bought one of my programs at my website, and I want to give a shout out to him. His name is, well, I won't give a name. So the initials were DM, but he bought my collection of podcasts from my previous show. I had a show before this called the Stop Losing Women podcast, and that podcast had 435 episodes. I have it on my website. It's available for $397, and you get the entire collection of some of the best advice that I've ever given to guys on how to date, okay? So you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and find that. But thank you to the guy that bought that, because I'm sure you're going to get, it's like hundreds of hours of advice. I have interviews that I've done with other people that are other dating experts in the field that came on the show and were able to give more advice to you guys, as well as my personal insights and some of the ups and downs I went through, so you can avoid some of the pitfalls and also learn some lessons that can help you along the way, okay? But all that said, so go to the website for that. But also, guys, if you go to the website, as you can see here, share my screen real quick, I have a lot of freebies there. So I have these freebies. This is the PDF here is the girlfriend roadmap checklist. And this is basically a step-by-step guide for you to know what to do when you first meet a woman, all the way to going through the dating process, the attraction phases, up to the point where you're getting into a relationship. It shows you exactly how to get to that path. Okay, that's a free PDF. I also have my first messages that wow women on dating apps webinar. And that is for those of you that like to do online dating, smart digital dating. This is going to give you the edge on when you match with that perfect woman. What are you going to say to her in that first message that's going to get her to want to continue a conversation with you? This webinar goes into all that. And again, it is free. And then over here, the Modify Your Mindset 5-day audio course. Basically, that is 5 days of audio that will be sent to you that will help you to get your mindset into the idea of the fact that you actually are worth being able to date the women that you want. It's going to talk about some of the pitfalls that you have in your head right now that are holding you back, and that will allow you to become a better dater. By the end of the 5 days, you should feel a lot more confident in who you are as a dater because you have modified your mindset, okay? So that's just a few of the things that I have at the website. I got a lot more stuff. Obviously, if you listen to this on the podcast, you can go to youtube.com/Harry Wilmington to subscribe to the channel, and you can always go to the website for more stuff. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer on one of these shows in particular, you can write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com, all right? So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the show. So We are talking today about, can modern women be feminine? And the short answer is yes, but I'll get to that in a second. So here's the thing. In today's world, as you're trying to date, you may notice that more and more women are independent, they're thriving on their own. And as a result of that, when you're dating these women, sometimes you can feel the energy coming off of them and it feels very masculine. And I know sometimes as guys, we're like, well, what's the deal with that? Because I'm supposed to be a masculine guy. I thought women wanted masculine guys. Why is this woman feeling so masculine? And there's a few reasons why that has happened so frequently in today's world. Okay, so I'm gonna go do a short little list about what it is that some of those things are. So for starters, a lot of women today, just like a lot of guys, but a lot of women in particular, grew up in single mom homes. Okay, and so these were women that were growing up around women that didn't have a male influence in the home. Okay, so that means that I don't like the phrasing of the mom had to be the mom and the dad, but what happened is basically the mom, for whatever reason, her and the dad weren't together. The dad went away. And so you have a little girl that's growing up under a mom who has built up resentment and has a lot of hurt. And as a result of that, she had to toughen up. So she's raising her daughter in an environment where she's had to be tough. She's had to bring her own masculine energy because she's trying to block out pain. She wants to make sure that her little girl doesn't get hurt like she did. So she's basically teaching this little girl to grow up on her own, to be able to do things by herself. And that is very much a masculine energy because little boys, we do Boy Scouts. We grow up under other men that are showing us the way of the world and how to be able to be leaders of the pack and how to fend for ourselves and stuff like that. Well, it's not bad that women learn that, but the problem is that does take them away from the essence of their femininity when they have to do that. On top of when they're growing up in a single mom home, they're not getting lessons from a man on what to look out for. I'm not getting lessons from a man on what are men looking for in women in terms of the feminine side of things that's going to really attract them. They don't get those lessons at all because the man's not there. So as a result of that, you have women that grow up very guarded. You have women that grow up with basically a hard stone face and ones that do not, for whatever reason, want to be feminine. And it's not they're not trying to be. It's just that they've learned based on their mom's lesson that being feminine can result in you being alone, single, and out here with nobody to be with you. And so they just kind of learn, okay, so I guess using this masculine energy to try to get ahead in life is going to be better. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that a woman will be more masculine in part because she has a distrust of men. And this can be for a variety of reasons, some of which I'll get into a little bit later. But women who have a history of men doing them wrong, they're going to distrust those men. And part of them being guarded means they have to now put on a more masculine shield in order to protect themselves, quote unquote, from any possible future men that will try to misuse them and they won't be able to trust. Okay, so that's the second reason. The third reason why a lot more women today are acting more masculine is because they're being told to be independent. There's this lie that women have been sold about the independent woman, about the woman that can do it all on her own, about the woman that doesn't need any man, about the woman that's supposed to be able to take charge and do it for herself. The problem is we are not designed by nature to be on our own. I mean, even men, even if men have a better chance of surviving on their own, like say you're in the woods or whatever, and you got to build a hut and you got to fend for yourself and kill food and do all that stuff, that doesn't mean that that's the preferable state for us to be in. So just like men, I don't believe are designed to be alone forever. Women are also not designed to be that way, but they've been sold this lie that they're going to be happier and more prosperous if they are independent. They actually get championed for that now. There are plenty of channels on YouTube and plenty of videos out there that's like, oh, go woman and you're a champion in feminism and you do what you want to do, girl. Don't let no man tell you whatever. And so again, part of that independent spirit means taking on the masculine role. Because if you're not trying to allow men in to, quote, tell you anything or to guide you in some way, that means you have to now be the own navigator of your ship. You have to be the one that's leading. You have to be the one that's taking charge. You have to be the one that's always making decisions. And again, those are typically like masculine energy roles. And it's not bad for women to be in that role at times, but a woman that has to be in that energy all the time, over time, will start to be a more masculine carrying woman. All right. That's the third reason. The fourth reason why more women act masculine today is because they've had to take on jobs that require masculine traits in order to advance. And this actually started in World War II when men had to go away and fight, and there was nobody here at the factories and stuff. So women had to go into the factories, had to go into the offices, they had to go into the boardrooms and take charge. And when the men got back, a lot of women said, you know what, I want to keep doing this stuff. Again, it's not a problem. It's just that, and I always say this, I keep saying this because there's been statistic after statistic and study after study that has shown that most women today, despite being in these masculine roles and despite taking on these jobs and being the head of corporations and all this stuff, are not happy because most of them are independent and thriving and they're single. And because women are typically the ones that are more social and they are more about relationships, the fact that they're not in a relationship makes them a lot more upset. But they're in these positions and roles that require more masculine energy. You figure a woman is trying to be the head of a company and a CEO, and she starts at the bottom and she's trying to work her way to the top. She has to go through all these various levels and she has to take on this masculine energy in order to be able to compete with the other people around her, the majority of which are going to be men. So as a result of that, over time, she'll start doing things on her off hours when she's not at work that make her appear more masculine. I've actually dated a couple women like this, whereby, again, we started out, it was great. They were feminine when they were with me, but then over time, they were taking on these hard jobs. So they were getting more positions and getting higher in the company, and they'd come home and complain about their day, and this mother effer did this and blah, 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 and I had to do this and that. And it's like they're just exuding all this masculine energy. And I'm sitting there like, I don't want to hear any of this because this now it makes me look like I'm like dating a dude, and I'm not trying to do that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm trying to date a feminine woman. You're bringing a lot of masculine energy day after day after day. It's being a very hard thing. But women that are trying to get to the top like that can oftentimes have that kind of energy. And then the fifth reason why more women act masculine today is, unfortunately, this goes back to number 2 about distrust of men, is because of trauma. Many women have faced traumatic events from the hands of men. And as I said earlier, in order to protect themselves from that, they've had to take on a more masculine energy. That's why you have what they call the resting bee face, but that face that basically says, I have an attitude and I don't want you near me. That's a masculine face. The women that are like, well, I don't need no man, and all men are dogs and they just want that. That's all argumentative masculine energy. And so you take these things into account, and is it any wonder today why a lot of women typically err on the side of having more masculine energy? Now, the problem is you as a guy with your own masculine energy are seeing these women out, seeing them at the club, seeing them at, a friend's party, and you don't know this when you first meet them. You meet them and they're just like, okay, that you see they look good, they smell good, but then you start talking to them and you start seeing them in their environments and stuff like that, and they start putting out this masculine energy, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I wanted to date her, but she's not being the feminine version of energy that I need in order to make this work. And does she even want that? Because over time, if you see a lot of this, you can start to think, well, maybe it's just that's today's woman. Maybe just all women don't mind being in their masculine energy. They fought for the right to work at the various offices and to work at various things that we used to do mostly as guys, and to be able to, have their own places and take care of their own. They're all saying they're independent. So that must be what they want. And the reality is, despite the thing that is constantly being put out there, or the impression you're getting that women want this as their lifestyle and they don't really need a man to help them, that is not actually true. Because the reality is, women, even the ones that are in their masculine energy, still want a guy that is going to be masculine. And what they actually want is a guy that is masculine enough for them to where they can rest more in their feminine energy, which is where they actually legitimately want to be in the first place. And I actually want to show you this. I'm going to show you this TikTok video that I found the other day, and it really illustrates the point of what I'm talking about, okay? So just take a quick look at this video. Here we go.
Okay, so I was just thinking about this, and let me know what y'all think. But there has been times where I will be talking to a man, and I won't be feeling it, and people will be like, why? And I'll be like, he's just too nice. And people will look at me like I'm stupid. They'll be like, what do you mean he's too nice? Like, you want somebody mean? And I figured it out. It's not that I want somebody mean. It's just what I'm looking for in a man is masculine energy that is dominant over my masculine energy, so it can bring out my feminine energy. Does that make sense? Like, if I feel like I have more masculine energy than you do, then I feel like you can't really be dominant over me and I can't be submissive and my feminine energy can't come out. Does that make sense? Because it makes sense to me. Let me know what y'all think.
Okay, so you can hear what she said, right? She said that it's not for you guys that have said, oh, women just want a bad boy or whatever. She's saying it right there in plain English. When she says that she's not attracted to a nice guy, it's not even about the niceness or the meanness, because women aren't looking for mean guys. That is not what they're saying. I think in that instance, a lot of times women aren't coming up with the right vocabulary for us to understand what they actually mean. And that's the first time I've actually heard that placed really well, because we'll hear, I don't want a nice guy. And we're like, what? And we're taking it literally. We're taking it literally as she doesn't want a nice guy. But there's an undertone to that, which is that it's not about the niceness. Because I myself, I'm a gentleman. When I'm dating a woman, I am very cordial to her. But it's this thing of nice guys are oftentimes equated with guys that aren't willing to stick up for themselves. Then they carry about this feminine energy, okay? So when she says the part about she feels like if a guy is not masculine enough, and if he's not able to out masculine her masculinity, that she's not going to respect him, that's exactly what she means. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, how does that happen? How is it that, I mean, I'm a guy, I got guy parts, how am I not masculine enough? But the reality is, not only have women been raised under single mother households, but boys have too. And for example, me, when my dad died at 9 years old, I grew up in a single parent home with my mom. And as well-meaning as she was at times, even she was aware that she had to occasionally get us around our uncles or other guys to teach us some of the more masculine sides of ourselves, because she as a woman could not teach that, okay? But unfortunately, a lot of the time I was around my mom, my grandma, my aunts. And so just by nature of that, there were things I would do or say at times, or inclinations in my tone, how I'd move about, whereby it could give the impression of having more feminine energy than masculine energy. And that really affected me in my high school years, as well as in my early college years, because I didn't know what that was the thing until I started studying this on my own and realized, oh crap, I may have a few feminine energy traits that are showing up that I'm not even aware of, you know? I talk fast, for example. A lot of times talking fast is equated with feminine energy. I talk fast to this day. It's not one of the things I can really help at this point, but I do it. But I was able to work on some other things that I was doing which I'll get into when I answer the guy's question later. But all that to say, women are looking at you and they're reading off you what kind of energy you're putting out. Okay. So what are examples of things that guys do that give out feminine energy? Short example. If you ask her on a date and she's like, hey, where do you want to go? And you say, well, where do you want to go? Right. That right there. You're basically telling her, hey, I need you to make the decision. I need you to lead this thing. And that, my friend, is a masculine energy. That is an example of a thing that a woman does not actually want to do. And she's looking at you as the man to do them. If you're a guy that's passing those off, if you're a guy that's consistently texting a woman, that is female energy. If you're a guy that's trying to see her every single day when you first meet and you're obsessing over her and you're wondering when she's going to call you again, that is all feminine energy. And women can read that. And so women will get a good read of that early on and cut you out altogether as the choice of a possible suitor, because she does not want a guy that is exuding more feminine energy than she is. It's not to say you can't ever exude it. You know, for example, I like romantic comedies. Hey, that is unfortunately stereotypically a thing that mostly women like. But I can do that thing and it's totally fine. But there are other things that I do that are masculine traded, to where if I do a couple of things here and there that are more feminine energy leaning, it's not going to knock points off of me for a girl that's liking me. Okay. So for those that are wondering what you can do to motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self, it's very, very simple. And that is, you have to tap into your masculine energy. Because if you're not tapped into your more masculine side, then she's going to have to tap more into her masculine side, where she does not want to be, and she is not going to want to date you as a result. So here are 5 ways that you can tap into your masculine energy as a way to motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self, okay? So number 1, Be willing to take the lead on things, okay? This means that when you are asking them for a date, you do not ask her where she wants to go. You plan the date. You mention 2 days that'll possibly work for you and maybe 2 times that'll work for you, and that's it. But you are the one that decides those things, okay? When she asks you a question about, hey, what movie do you want to see today, or where do you want to go, what do you want to do? Always have an answer. Because if you're trying to volley back and forth like, hey, well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? That is, again, that's now her having to tap into her masculine energy to answer those questions, okay? And keep in mind, when women start dating you, they're looking at you to be a leader because they're thinking long-term. If we have kids, if, job things come up where moving decisions have to be made, if I get sick and we need to decide how to get me to the hospital, what kind of treatment, et cetera, will he be there and be able to make those kind of decisions? If you're not, then she's going to have to make them, which means she's going to feel more like the leader, which means she's going to feel more like the man in the relationship. And that is not a place where you want to be. So you have to learn to be able to be comfortable with taking the lead on things. Yes, there will be times that you'll make a decision and it'll be a mistake and it'll be the wrong one, but you are going to still gain brownie points with the woman for at least being willing to take that risk and make the decision than to back away or to try to leave it on her, okay? When women go to work in the day, they're already stressing out on the fact that they got to go to work and make decisions. When they get home and when they come to see you, they really don't want to. Most women are just like, I just want the guy to lead and do whatever, and I don't want to think about anything, okay? So be comfortable in that role. That's the first way that you can really make her be more motivated to be in her feminine energy. The second way is to be more confident and relaxed. Now, this may sound like a stereotypical thing to say, so I'm going to preface this by saying it's not always like this. This is a generality, okay? But on average, given the two sexes, women are typically the ones that are a little bit less confident about the way they move about in the world, about the decisions that they're making, and they're the ones that typically have a lot more anxiety. Women on average have more anxiety issues than guys do, okay? But I say this to say, you as a guy need to then be more confident and more relaxed, because when she has craziness going on in her world, when the storms are brewing, when things are going on that she can't seem to control, she's going to look to you to see how you're taking things. And if you're also over there panicking and bugged out, don't know what's going on, again, she can try to tap out of it, which she's going to now tap into that masculine energy to try to get herself back on track. But I promise you, the women that I've dated that have gone through various turmoils, and they look at me and I'm just like, oh, we can figure this out. Oh, it's not gonna be a problem. Or, hey, babe, we'll get through it. We'll figure out something. Those are the situations where the women come back later and say, I'm so glad that I was able to lean on you. I was glad that you were able to help me kind of like, see things for what they really were, that it wasn't as bad as I thought, and that I was able to get out of this thing, okay? Women need that from you. If you're the one that's constantly like worrying and self-pitying and you're not relaxed and you're always anxious about stuff, women aren't going to feel that they can trust your emotions. They're not going to feel like you're going to be the guy that can lead them anywhere, and they're not going to want to stick around, okay? So just learn to become more confident and relaxed, okay? This is where being indifferent comes into play, because the less that you allow things to control your emotions, you're going to be more even keel in the head, and you're going to be the one that's able to think in situations where there's turmoil going on. Like you'll be the calm in the storm, and it's like, okay, let me just sit here for a little bit and think about what's going on, and let's figure out a solution. And that energy is needed when she's chaotic, because you both cannot be chaotic at the same time. That will never work for her, and it will not work for the relationship. That's number 2. The third way to motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self, honestly, is to stand up for yourself and your opinions. And this means sometimes having difficult conversations, and sometimes it means having to put her in her place. I don't like that phrasing, but that's the best way I can think of it, is putting her in her place. Meaning, if she comes to you and she starts trying to bark at you or yell at you, or she's disagreeing with you in some way and she wants to start snapping off, that is her masculine energy coming out. That's the point where she's saying, I'm using my masculine energy to get at you. What are you going to do? And these are the times where you have to basically out-masculine her to the point where it basically shuts her down and she gets back into her feminine, okay? Now, this is not to say you have to be rude or disrespectful, but what it does mean is that these are times where you have to be firm in your convictions. You might have to say some stuff like, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that. You have to put parameters around how this person is going to treat you when these difficult conversations come up, okay? And recognize this, is that women are always going to be the ones typically to come to you with some kind of problem or issue, because you as a guy most of the time are going to be like, hey, if she's treating me with respect and she's loyal, everything's fine. But women are going to find things that sometimes feel nitpicky, or for example, they might have a different opinion than you about something. You might be trying to do some kind of action. I know as an introvert, a big one back in the day was I wanted to have my alone time. And sometimes that meant going out of town by myself to just be by myself. And some women had a problem with that. But the point is that these conversations, when they come up, women need to have them, because women talk things out in order to be able to get to a certain kind of feeling tone about something to resolve some stuff. And I know as guys, we don't always want to talk about stuff. And sometimes we're like, well, you want to acquiesce to, well, I don't want to have this be a fight, so I'm going to just give her whatever she wants. But women don't actually want that. What they want is the conversation. And honestly, women also sometimes want to feel your masculine energy hitting up against theirs so they can back down. Like, in order for her to feel feminine sometimes, she needs to feel you putting her in her place. She needs to feel you, talking back to her and saying, hey, you're not going to treat me like this, and I'm going to tell you my opinion, and if you don't like it, then tough crap, you're going to have to deal with it, this and that. Like, sometimes women need to feel that in order to actually feel that you have a masculine presence about you. And there were so many times in my past, I remember, like, I'd be dating women, and a fight would start, and I would just try to be like, well, okay, well, I see your point of view. Well, okay, I get it. Well, maybe I was wrong, this and that. And then they actually seemed unhappy afterwards that I was agreeing with them, and unhappy that whatever position I had, I changed it. Because now it means, in what that means is that they are now leading this conversation. They're now leading what I'm thinking about. And that is doing what? It's inadvertently putting them in their masculine energy where they don't want to be. But then why, Harry, would they have an argument with me? Because again, sometimes they got to get it off their chest, but they're still looking for you to handle it in a way that is more masculine than how they're presenting it. And if you do that enough times, then what will happen is when women come to you, they'll be more respectful, and they'll, even if they have a strong disagreement with you, they'll present it to you in a way that is more feminine and less masculine. So they won't feel like they're trying to fight you like gladiator style. Instead, they'll be able to come to you and say, hey, so, I have this issue, I want to talk about it, and, blah, blah, blah. And you'll still have that softer voice when she comes to you with stuff versus barking at you. But that only happens if you're able to not run away from these conversations, stand up for yourself, and actually say to her, like, hey, this is what it is. This is how you're going to treat me. This is what I stand for. And if you don't like it, then I'm sorry, but I'm not changing it for nobody. Okay. That'll actually keep her in her feminine energy. So that's number 3. The 4th way to motivate a woman to be in her naturally feminine self is to anticipate her needs and make decisions without her input. So anticipating needs is simple. It just means if you're with a woman long enough, she says some stuff, she'll mention some things that she wants, she'll mention some things that she really cares about, some stuff that she's passionate about, et cetera, et cetera. Just being able to anticipate when women say stuff, just pay attention, and then you can anticipate, okay, maybe there's a way for me to do this thing or get this thing. And just being able to pay attention. This goes back to the whole thing of, like, later in life, as situations are occurring, you're going to be the one that needs to be looking out for, okay, what's coming up soon? What's going to be happening? How are we paying for this house? How are these bills getting paid? How are we going to get these kids into school? So being able to anticipate with her is going to equate to her as, oh, this is a guy that is looking out for everything in the relationship, including my needs, his needs, other people's needs, other possible kids' needs, et cetera, et cetera. And that's going to put her in a place where she feels she can trust you, because not only are you making decisions, but you're able to anticipate what those needs are going to be, which means you're intuitive and you're able to really make her feel as if you get her. Okay. Women want to be with guys that get them and that aren't going to punish them for it. And then the 5th way to motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self is to be a sex machine. And I know that sounds like, what? Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm serious. I mean, you need to study up on sex. You need to ask her what she likes in the bedroom or what things she wants to try in the bedroom. You need to be studying the Kama Sutra. You need to be studying up various positions you can try. You need to be looking up ways to make yourself as much of a sexually satisfying experience as possible, because all the other things I mentioned on this list are absolutely great. And you can be all those things, but if you're able to really be in tune with a woman's body, that is as masculine as you can get. Because I'll tell you right now, a majority of other guys out here are not doing that. They're not paying attention to what the woman's needs are. They're just assuming they're going in there, putting their stuff in her, doing a few licks here and there, and they got it on lock. They can't tell she's faking it or not because they don't know how to read it, and they don't care. They don't care. They're just like, you know what? I'm going to be here and do what I want to do, and hopefully if I'm getting off, it must mean that she's getting off too. But if you really want her to be in her feminine, you have to be the guy that is so in tune with her body and what her needs possibly are, that she'll have mind-blowing orgasms, and she will just naturally turn into that ultra feminine woman, because a woman in the bedroom wants to play the feminine role. Most women in the bedroom honestly don't want to take charge. They want you to lead the interaction. They want to be thrown around and tossed and smacked and you got to ask these questions, but spanked on the butt. They want to have their hair pulled. They want to be choked at times. And these are all things that say, I want to be submissive to the guy that I'm with. And if you're afraid, if you're a guy that's like, well, I don't want to hurt her, I want this and that, then you are missing out, guy, and you're not tapping into your side of masculinity. That is the primal part that says, I'm going to take what I want and get it from this woman. Again, with her consent, of course. You want to make sure you have consent with all that stuff. But assuming a woman's giving you consent and okay, she doesn't want to be asked a lot of questions in the bed. I mean, she wants you to know what she likes. But most women are still down to like, hey, so I've had women tell me times, hey, you know what, tonight, whatever you want to do. What is that saying? I'm submissive to you. I trust you. Whatever you want to do as a masculine guy, bring your masculine energy to me. I want to be in the feminine role of just being able to take it all in, but you can do whatever you want in order for me to take that in. Okay. So that's a very, very important thing. So if you're a guy that's a virgin, or a guy that hasn't had a lot of sex, or a guy that's had sex but hasn't had a lot of repeats, that may mean that you need to start studying up to be a better partner for somebody. Okay. So to recap, the 5 ways to motivate a woman to be her naturally feminine self. 1, be willing to take the lead. Number 2, be more confident and relaxed. Number 3, stand up for yourself and your opinions. That means having difficult conversations and sometimes putting her in her place if she needs to be. Number 4, anticipating her needs and making decisions without her input. And number 5, be a sex machine, learn her body, and you will get the things you want. If you do these 5 things, then that gives a woman enough view of you to see you as a masculine energy guy, to where she'll feel more trusting to be able to get into her feminine energy versus having to stay in the state of mind of being masculine. Now, I will say this. Unfortunately, there are some women out there that no matter what you do, they're just in their masculine energy and they don't know how to tap out of it. They've been in it for too long, especially the older woman gets. Like by the time she's like 35, 36, if she's been playing the masculine role most of her life, it's going to be very, very hard for her to get out of that role. That said, that doesn't mean it's impossible. But for young women that you're meeting that, in their 20s that are, they're fighting between trying to make it in this world and be masculine, but want to be feminine enough to get a guy, then these are women that when you come along and you display your masculine energy, they are definitely going to appreciate you for it. All right. So now that we got that segment out of the way, we are going to answer a question of the day. And as I tell you guys all the time, if you guys have a question you want answered on one of these shows, you can write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com. That's harrywilmington@gmail.com. By the way, guys, if you like what you're hearing on this show and you want to show your support, I do have a Cash App. It's $Harry Wilmington. And that's just if you want to show support for the show. This is a free show, so I'm not saying you have to pay any kind of money to listen to this show. What I'm saying is if you like this content and you want to show your support, it takes a lot of effort to put on these kind of shows. I had to get a laptop. I got lights. I got microphones. I got all this equipment that I paid for, and I do these weekly. I got StreamYard that I'm paying for on a monthly basis. So if you want to support the show because I keep putting these out, I am always gracious for that, and I accept it, and I thank you very much for those of you that have so far, okay? So once again, you can go to Cash App and send it to $Harry Wilmington, okay? Any amount. It could be $1, it could be a penny, it could be 100,000, million, billion, trillion dollars. Whatever you send, it just says, hey, Harry, I appreciate all the effort that you put into these shows and the help you put into my life, and it is much appreciated. All right. So anyway, now we're going to answer this guy's question. This guy has a question, and he asked, what advice would you give to a male who is relatively feminine but is still attracted to feminine women? If you knew a young guy, late teens or 20s, who was attracted to feminine women, but he has feminine mannerisms and feminine personality traits, such as higher in agreeableness and neuroticism, and he was struggling with women, what advice would you give him? Would you tell him to embrace how he is right now and find someone who likes him the way he is? Or would you tell him to become more masculine in order to offer something of interest to the types of people that he's interested in? So thank you, guys, for the question. And this is a very interesting question because this really taps into a lot of things ranging from who you are as a guy, what should or should not be accepted, should you be changing yourself, or should you be accepted for who you are, okay? And I went through this same struggle. Like I said, my dad died when I was 9 years old. I grew up around mostly women. Most of my friends growing up in high school and college were women. And so for me, I was very much in my feminine energy. And when I moved out to California and started dating, I would go out with women at times that would actually let me know that what I was doing was not quite as masculine as they needed it to be. Perfect example. I dated this woman one time. She was a law school person. She worked at a law school. And when we first met up, like our second date, we hooked up. It was freaking great. But what I noticed was that there would be times when we would go out on dates and I would go to hold her hand. And the direction in which my hand was going, I guess I was putting my hand under hers instead of putting it over hers. And anytime I would go for her hand to hold her hand, she would take my hand and then she would move her hand to the way that it was supposed to go, as if to say, hey, you're the guy. Your hand is supposed to be leading mine. Now, this is a woman who was teaching at law school, and she grew up in a two-parent household, but she was definitely very much on her own. She was she had that energy of a person that could have a little bit more masculine energy, because going to law school, you're in the trenches studying all the time. You're learning all these various things, and it's very much a masculine energy in that type of environment. That was back then. I don't know if it's changed or not. So for misspeaking, it is what it is. But anyway, so all that to say, but even with that kind of woman who had a very high paying job, was in a very high position in her company or whatever, she still wanted me as the guy to display masculine traits so she could feel like the female when she was with me. Okay. And so when I read these kind of letters, that's what I think about. I think about the guys out there that grew up around a lot of women. And so it's not bad, like I said earlier, if you happen to have a few traits here and there that are feminine. But what can happen is that other women will then see those traits and they're going to subconsciously mark you off their list. It's not a thing they're going to consciously do, because women don't want to think that they're being biased against other guys, because it sounds stupid to be like, oh, well, a guy is caring and he's highly agreeable and he's, doing X, Y, and Z. So I should like him, right? Because he's being a nice guy. But unfortunately, that is not how the real world works. In the real world, if you're doing a lot of feminine energy leaning activities or postures or movements, and you're looking for a woman that is also feminine, then that's not going to work out. Now, you might think to yourself, okay, well, if I'm a guy with feminine energy, couldn't I just find a woman with masculine energy? You can, but here's the problem. Even those women inevitably are going to want a guy that has more masculine energy than them. And I only know this because I have some strong women in my family. They're strong. They had high positions in life. They work for what they wanted to. They have families. They got married to guys, and most of them are divorced. And part of that was because I had one that actually took on his wife's last name, and then they got divorced. And that's because in the natural order of things, women ultimately do not want to play the masculine role. So even if you're a guy that's in his feminine and you look for a woman that's in her masculine, that doesn't mean she wants to be there. More often that means that because of the life that she had growing up, she had to tap into her masculine energy more often than she wanted to. But that does not mean that that's where she actually wanted to stay. And it does not mean that there's not a part of her that always wished that some guy would come along and be able to take over all these various masculine roles that she took on so she could then, slink back into her femininity. All right. So here's the thing. Ultimately, and I like this quote from the Hitch movie, even though I'm not a fan of that movie so much anymore, but Will Smith has a line in there where he says, who you are is a very fluid thing. And what that means is that who you are today as a guy is bound to change. We're always changing. We're always learning new things about ourselves and learning about how the world works. And we're always adapting to those things. So even though you might be a certain way now, you might pick up certain knowledge about men and how men typically operate and what females find attractive in men when they do certain things that could change how you operate. So who you are right now is perfectly fine, but it's not giving you the results that you want, which means that there is nothing wrong with then wanting to add things to yourself to make you a more masculine energy person that women will then like. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is not to say, oh, change yourself for women. What it is saying is that if you're recognizing that you have a lot of feminine traits and you recognize that females that are in their feminine are looking for more masculine traits, then it's not going to hurt you in this world to learn those more masculine things. Just like I said with the hand holding, I had to learn the hand hold thing, but ever since I dated that girl, when I've dated other women since her, I've known how to hold a hand. So that's now not a thing that is going to be held against me or subconsciously make a woman think, why am I leading this guy around? He's supposed to be leading me around. Like, again, you're supposed to be the guy. As the guy, you're the one that's supposed to be in the leading role. If you're doing things that are more feminine energy leading, that puts you in the more submissive role. And women, on average, are going to be the ones that want to be more submissive to the man. They don't want their man submitting to them. That is not to say that she does not want a man that's not going to work with her or see equal value in her, but it does mean a woman's more apt to want to acquiesce to what her man is. And if that man is not showing masculine traits, then you're in a losing position, okay? So what I would tell him is this: nothing wrong with learning some masculine stuff. There are plenty of books on it. There's plenty of great advice out there for guys, by guys, such as my stuff at introvertdatingsuccess.com. But there's plenty of guys out there that'll teach you how to be in your masculine, how to carry yourself, what women are really looking for, how to do things that are going to let women see you in a more masculine light, what things to avoid doing altogether. I got a whole book on this called No Girls For You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams, which is basically my journey of figuring out why it is all these things that I was doing actually didn't work, okay? That is also at the website in the products tab, okay? But yeah, so that's the advice that I would give, is that learn what those things are that you're missing out on. And this isn't to say, by the way, that you got to be extra macho. It's not saying you got to go work out in the gym, although I do recommend working out just to be in shape, but that's not something you have to do. Like all these so-called toxic masculine behaviors that are out there, those aren't things women want. I mean, women, you might think that, oh, women are leaning towards all these guys who are doing these so-called toxic masculine things, but that's not it. What happens is those guys that are doing those that we'll say are toxically masculine, those are the ones that they might be doing harmful things, but there's a part of them that's also putting out their traits that women naturally respond to that are positive. You know, things like being a leader, making decisions, not being indifferent to her feelings about if it gets mad at you for something that you want to do. How are you taking that? And unfortunately, a lot of guys today, because we were raised under a lot of single women and single mothers, and we've gotten a lot of this feminine teaching, we have leaned more into our feminine, to whereby we think these things are okay because, well, our moms were feminine, but they taught us these things and we're good people, so it should be totally fine. But then women that are out there trying to date, they're looking at you and saying, he's more feminine than me. I don't think I want a guy that's more feminine than me. I want a guy that is really not feminine at all, but at least is more masculine in showing himself than I am. If you're not able to do that, then it definitely is to your benefit. It is to your benefit to learn this. Because I went a lot of years where I wasn't doing that, and it wasn't until my mid-20s when my dating started taking off. And part of that was because I had a lot of feminine energy traits that I had to either lessen or get rid of altogether that were not serving me. If it's not serving you to have them, then you got to ask yourself, why are you holding on to this? And I think part of that is because we don't want to admit to ourselves in our egos that our feminine energy is a bad thing, or that to change it's going to make us a different person than who we are. Because you don't need to equate being masculine with being a bad person or being completely different from who you are. You can add masculine traits to who you are and then allow that person to be the version of you that is your best self, and that's the most effective self at being able to get women. So hopefully, Guy, this answers your question. And for those of you guys that need help figuring out how to be more masculine in a positive way, subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Harry Wilmington. You can also go to my website, introvertdatingsuccess.com. All right. Lastly, guys, as a bonus into this, I want to talk about a video game that can actually help you communicate better with your significant other. And this is actually something I found out per chance when I was dating a woman, and she brought this game to my attention. And as I started playing it, I recognized how much value there was. For one, the game was fun, but also I recognized how much value there was in it, in a sense of being a really good couples game that can help you to communicate with your partner and learn what each other's communication styles are, so you can have talks with the person a lot easier. And that game, believe it or not, is Overcooked. It is a cooking game. Basically, you and your partner are chefs in the kitchen. And there's Overcooked 1 and Overcooked 2. There's two versions of the game. They're both great. But basically in the game, you have to make these recipes and meals, and then you serve them out of the kitchen. And there's a timer in each level, and you have a certain amount of time to create a certain amount of meals. As you turn in the meals, you get points both for the meal that you make, as well as for the earlier you turn it in, you get tips as well. And so each round will have 3 or 4 levels of stars, whereby you want to hit a certain point level in order to get certain stars. For example, if you get like 200 points, you might get 1 star. If you get 350 points, you might get 2 stars. You get 500 points, you get 3 stars. And if you get like 1,000 points, you get 4 stars. Okay. So when I got introduced to this game, after a few rounds of it, what I recognized was that in order to be able to successfully cook meals in the kitchen, you have to be communicating with your partner the entire time. I mean, like nonstop talking, like, hey, I'm making this over here. Hey, pass me the flour. Hey, take this plate over here. Hey, put this thing in the oven. Put this thing in the pot over here. Hey, I'm going to serve this to the people. We need to get these plates washed. And it seems so simple on the cover of just like, oh, it's just going to be this fun little game, whatever. But in terms of being able to deal with your significant other, I'm going to give you real quick 3 reasons why this game is actually a benefit to your communication with the person you're with. Okay. So the first one is teamwork. Because in any coupledom, in order for it to be an effective match, you all are going to need to be on the same team. You're going to need to be able to work together in different environments and be able to basically like not curse each other out too much and be able to do things that are going to be effective to be able to get the outcome that you want. And this game has that in spades because there's so many levels in the game, like 60, 70, 80 levels, plus they got DCL packs and stuff like that. So you could be playing this game for a long time if you want to actually beat it, okay? And so in order to get through all these levels, in order to get the high level of stars, because trust me, you're going to want to get 3 stars in each level to be able to get the 4-star levels. The only way you're doing that is teamwork. And so this is a game that teaches you how to work together. It can help you to learn what your partner's best style is in terms of talking communication, in terms of action communication, just various things that as a couple in the real world, you're going to need to be able to do. And this game is a great way to practice that. The second way that this game is great for your communication is that ultimately, like I said, communication is the key to passing these levels. And so what it means is that you're going to have to practice different forms of communication because what you don't want is to make your partner so mad that they quit. And I know as a guy, you could be with the woman, working with her on something, and you might think to yourself, okay, I already know 3 different ways to do this thing, but she's trying to do it her own way as well. And if you start yelling at her or trying to make her cry or saying you can do, imposing your will over her, whatever, it's not going to work out. And so this is the game that really teaches you each other's communication styles in terms of, hey, how do I best receive information from this other person? How can I best give it? And then what ways can I do it in a way that's going to be positive, even at times when things are difficult? Because there will be times in this game when you're trying to reach a certain goal and things are difficult and either you or the woman that you're dating are doing actions in the kitchen that are mistakes or that aren't beneficial to you winning the round. And when those things come up, are you going to yell at them? Are you going to scream at them? Are you going to try to push your will? You're going to try to just take over the whole kitchen, do everything yourself? Like, this is where the better communication that you have, the higher points you're going to be able to get, the more stars you'll obtain, and the better you'll get at really being able to fully beat this game, okay? So it's a great way to practice communication styles because it really is the key to passing these levels. And then the third way is that it's going to allow you to practice patience with your partner. Because again, if you're both going for this goal and mistakes happen in the kitchen and other things arise, this is where you learn to become indifferent. Because at the beginning, I'll be honest, in the beginning when you start playing, your partner's going to make a mistake. They're going to turn the plate with the wrong order on it. They're not going to get a certain thing in time. They're going to leave something on the oven for too long and it's going to burn. You're going to be mad at them. But what you're going to learn is that, again, this is a 2-player to 4-player game. But for purposes of the couple, it's a 2-player game. If you get mad at this other person and they leave, you now don't have a partner to play with. And so you have the option of being mad, losing your cool, or you can learn to practice patience during the game to whereby if a mistake's made, just say, hey, okay, babe, we can try it again. Or, hey, you know what? Next time, let's do this, this, and this. You learn to have a better tone. Like before, you might have been the guy who'd been like, hey, you doing blah, blah. But now just be like, hey, babe, so like that was a good round. Next time, make sure we do this thing. Be sure to get this thing over here. Blah, blah, blah. And you'll find that you're going to be able to practice patience with this other person in this game. That's going to be very, very helpful in real life when, inevitably just being with a woman long enough, she's going to do something to annoy you, upset you, piss you off, do something accidental that you don't want her to do. And in those moments, because you have practiced in this game how to be more patient and not fly off the handle, that's going to then transfer into real life when you're dealing with these various situations. So, and on top of all that, Overcooked is just a very, very fun game in general. It's a great couples game, but it's also just a great game to really practice your video game skills. And they have some really, really challenging levels. But as a couples game, highly recommend it for those of you that have been having issues with communication in your relationship. And it really gives you a chance to practice those skills that are necessary to really, really take your relationship with this other person all the way. So, guys, that's all I got for today's show. So thank you for watching this. Do me a favor. If you like this show, again, one, you can support the show by Cash Apping me at $Harry Wilmington. But also, more importantly, guys, share the show with the people that you love. I'm getting some great views and listens on podcasts now. My subscription base is now at 500 something on YouTube. And so right now the goal is 1,000. So all I ask is if you like this video, if you like this podcast, go to my YouTube page, click the subscribe button, like one of the shows, and share this with your friends. It didn't cost nothing to share the show with your friends, but it definitely helps me out. In the meantime, guys, like I said before, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com for my various programs, for my various podcasts, for various ebooks, for my various freebies. Like, definitely go there to be able to get the education that you need to become a more effective dater. Because ultimately, guys, I want you to be as successful as possible. I want you to avoid some of the pitfalls that I faced early on in dating. And going to the website, going to my YouTube page will help you with just that. Also, I got a TikTok now. You can find me on TikTok at Harry Wilmington. I got a bunch of great videos there as well. So be sure to check all that stuff out. And be sure to come back for next week's show. I believe there'll be a live show next Sunday. If not, I'll let you know. But either way, I'm trying to do these every Sunday now. So just check the pages before Sunday to see what the upcoming topic is, and you'll be able to watch those shows as well. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching this broadcast, and I will catch you all on the next show. If you have any questions that you want me to answer on one of these shows, harrywilmington@gmail.com is where you can write me. Thanks a lot. Catch you next time. Peace.